The next person that I have the honor and the pleasure of introducing is Sheehan.
Hello.
Yeah. You know, most of you know the story that she is the mother of Sheehan, who departed on April of 2004. I can only imagine the mother's grief, or parents' grief, for that matter, when they have lost a son or a daughter, when they have lost their firstborn in a war that we believe is unjust. Cindy experienced the grief that all of us have experienced when we lost someone that we love. And I'm sure that she continues to grieve every single day. But she did more than just grieve. She went out and identified with other Gold Star mothers. Because generally what happens for the fallen soldier, the government gives the mother a Gold Star. Cindy says that it's not only the mothers that grieve, it's not only the mothers that are affected. So when she formed her organization, she called it Gold Star Families. And like any of us would do, we would ask the question, why? Why? And I'm sure that she probably asked herself that 1,000 times. But she didn't stop there. She met with George Bush and said, why? And I have a long biography, but what Cindy said is that she described President Bush as being detached from humanity. And she said that his mouth kept moving, but there was nothing in his eyes or anything else about him that showed her that he really cared or had any real compassion at all. One of the third of the fallen after the invasion was a brother from Baltimore, and so we made big piece about it. And I didn't actually get a chance to meet his family, but I saw him on the local news and everything. And I was just trying to imagine the parents' grief. You know, when the offspring dies so far away, and you don't know why. And you meet with the president who doesn't have a clue. But I'm not going to attempt to share that story with you, because a person who has been out there actually becoming the face of the whole effort for peace in the U.S. and actually around the world, a real face for our movement, our sister, Cindy Sheehan.
Yes.
I feel like I've stumbled in the middle of a family reunion here. Very honored to be here and to feel so welcomed as a stranger into your family, although there are many familiar faces here to me. My daughter called me right before I came here, and she said, "So Mom, where are you today?" And I said, "I'm pretty sure I'm in Cleveland." And I said, "Yeah, I'm in Cleveland." She said, "Well, what are you doing there?" And I said, "I'm going to speak at a conference called U.S. Labor Against the War." And she said, "Oh, so you're going to be talking to a lot of socialists." Very bright girl. I said, "Yeah, that's true, with a few communist and anarchist sprinkled in for a little flavor too. And my son Andy, my other son, just turned 23, is actually in a union in California, the local, what's it called, Operating Engineers Union, and he's 23 years old. He makes like at least 5 times more than the federal minimum wage. He has something his mom doesn't have, health insurance, and a pension. Great benefits, great supportive union. The whole leadership they sent out messages of solidarity with us when we were at Camp Casey last year. But his brother, 24 years old, when he died, he wasn't even bringing home $2,000 a month, working for Uncle Sam. He had good health care, but they never let him off work to go to the doctor when he was sick. He had to be like on death's door before they would let him go see a doctor or give him any sick leave. And what's happening in our country, and I know you know even better than I, is that the only option they want to give our children is to join the military. And trust me, I would rather have Casey flipping burgers for federal minimum wage in Vacaville than where he is right now. It's so hard when you are the last one to speak, especially when there's such great speakers before you. After Dennis spoke, I wanted to go get baptized for something. I don't even know what. They always put me after Dennis. It's really hard. He's a really hard act to follow. And whenever I speak about Democrats, which I want to do sometimes, I always have to exclude Congressman Kucinich from what I say, because I have the highest respect and admiration for him. He and I have been collaborators since before Camp Casey. It seems like anybody that is for peace kind of gets attracted to the universe of Dennis Kucinich. And I was in his office months before Camp Casey, and we were working together. Before any of you heard the name of Cindy Sheehan, Dennis Kucinich and I were working together for peace. So if I get off on a tangent about Democrats, you'll have to know that it excludes some, like Dennis and Jim McGovern, who has sponsored H.R. 4232 to cut the funding for the war from Massachusetts. Seattle, Washington, who has never wavered in his support for what is good and for what's right and for what's true. I tell him he votes 100% the Cindy Sheehan ticket. He has never once voted a way that I wouldn't have voted. And there's a great congresswomen in my state, Barbara Lee and Maxine Waters and Little Lee. Congresspeople with integrity who I am excluding if I talk about Democrats. But I just, use the general term Democrats. And might as well, like the brother before me said, say Republicans too. Might as well, when it comes to war and peace, they're different sides of the same coin, usually. So I just want to make those disclaimers before I go into my speech. But Dennis is gone, so I didn't really have to go through all that. Samir, when he called what's going on in occupation, we have to get over in this country calling it a war. Wars are declared by Congress.
Yep.
Yeah.
This is an illegal and immoral occupation. I spoke a little over a year ago. I was in. I don't even like to recall this experience. I was in the office of North Carolina Congresswoman Elizabeth Dole. I took one for the peace movement there. And I said, you know, this occupation is illegal and immoral. And she said, you think what we're doing over there is an occupation? I said, what do you call it? She goes, a liberation. And I'm sure, like Samir said, they don't want to be liberated by cluster bombs. They don't want to be liberated that way. If they wanted to be liberated, that was up to the people of Iraq to liberate themselves. They tried that once back in the first Gulf War, and George Bush the first abandoned them after he said that he would support them. So, Samir, whenever I meet an Iraqi person, the first thing I have to do is apologize. Apologize to them for what we have let our country do to them, for what we have let our leaders do to them. And I know many of you have been out protesting against this occupation before it started. And I know that many of you have been activists for years and years and years. I'm going to be a snot and say even before I was born. But as long as it continues, every single American, I don't care who you are, we all have blood on our hands. Some people are covered in blood. Some people will never be able to wash the blood off if they started scrubbing right now. But we all have a responsibility for what's going on in Iraq. And I just want to say that I am against violence in any form, against any wars, against any use of violence to solve problems. But the person who actually pulled the trigger that killed my son, I have nothing but compassion for. Because we are illegal occupiers of their country. And if we were being occupied, we would do exactly the same thing. And maybe, you know what, and maybe the occupying force would call us terrorists, but we would be calling ourselves patriots and freedom fighters. So, the person that I don't have any compassion for is the one who actually killed Casey, and that's George Bush. If I seem a little awkward up here, I was flying yesterday, surprise, surprise, and I only do it about 5 times a week. But the plane landed, and just as it landed, I bent over to pick up my purse, and for some, I don't know, maybe the pilot was having a flashback, but he slammed on the brakes and my head jammed right into the back of the seat, so I'm kind of moving a little awkward and a little slow up here. But, and I feel awkward, so I apologize if I come off as awkward. Anyway, I was looking at some headlines before I came into this event tonight. One of the headlines that jumped out at me was 91 Iraqis killed, 40 wounded, and 3 car bombings in Baghdad. And for what Samir does is just in no comparison in any way to what we do. Because we can go out and we can protest, and no matter how sassy we get, you know, I have been arrested for justice. I have been in jail for justice. And it's mostly because I'm sassy and I don't obey illegal orders anymore. And, but no matter what we have to face here, at least we can go to the market without fearing being blown to pieces in a car bomb. You know, so the people of Iraq, Samir got out to tell his story, but that's very rare. We have to be their voices. We have to hear what Samir says. And I went to Amman, Jordan to hear what other Iraqi people have to say. We have to hear what they have to say, and we have to hear what they want, and we have to be their voices. And we have to be our soldiers' voices too. Because no matter what you hear, most of them know it's a war based on lies. Most of them know they're over there for oil, and most of them want to come home. But they can't stay there. We have to be the ones to stay there. And we had a soldier killed today in another IED attack, and that's bringing the total almost to 2,900. And between the two wars, occupations of Afghanistan and Iraq, we have lost well over 3,000 people. And like Samir said, over 655 innocent Iraqis, 55,000 innocent Iraqis have been killed. If you extrapolate that to the population of America, that's 6,550,000. That's the population the size of the city of Austin, Texas. And would the world be sitting around going, oh well, if 6,550,000 mostly white people were killed? If this was happening in Ireland, would we be sitting around going, oh well? You know, let's start calling what's going on in Iraq what it really is, and it's a genocide. Then I was stunned to find out that Boeing airplanes are being used for torture flights. Didn't Condi and George and Dick tell us that's not going on? We also, by our silence, are complicit in members of humanity being tortured. I had somebody write me the other day, he goes, oh, big deal, it's just no more serious than hazing, fraternity hazing. Have any of you belonged to a fraternity that waterboarded people? Have any of you belonged to fraternities that torture people to death? And you know, that's the only thing they can't do is torture people to death. Anything else is fair game. Then I saw another one that appalled me, another headline. George W. Bush won't change policy on Iraq no matter what the Iraq Survey Group said. And like Dennis said, it's just a smoke screen. That's all that is to buy George more time. To get them to the 2008 elections. That's what this ISG group is. And the head of it is James Baker. Have any of you heard of James Baker?
Yeah.
James Baker's counsel for the Carlyle Group. What does the Carlyle Group do? They're the biggest defense contracting group in the world. They have a stake in keeping this war going. And I admire Dennis, and I like the idea of the Department of Peace. But as long as we have a Department of War that is a behemoth, a Department of Peace is not going to do any good. It's just going to be another bureaucracy that has, like the Iraq survey groups being conducted in the U.S. Institute of Peace. Bullshit. And I'm not afraid to say bullshit. My church-going sister over here.
She swears a lot.
She says BS, let's just stretch it out. Until we reduce the size of the Pentagon down to the size of the Dorothy Day Worker House in Washington, D.C., we are always going to have these problems. And like Dennis said about the funding, George Bush has proven to be an irresponsible maniac. If Fred said Republicans are a little crazy, well, that's a little crazy. I don't want to go anywhere else. George Bush is a psychopathic murderer. You know? And he has been proven over and over again to be irresponsible. But Congress keeps on giving them more money to be more irresponsible. That's like if I had a child who's a drug addict and I know they're a drug addict, and if they came to me and said, Mom, can I have money for drugs? I say, oh sure, and give them the money for drugs. Congress is funding George Bush's addiction to killing. And I hope I see every one of you, because I'll be there, I just found out about it, but I'll be there. I'll be there saying, don't give him any more money to kill innocent Iraqis and to kill our children. You stop that. I was in Korea the week of Thanksgiving, and it was very instructive to me. You know, the war, the occupation of Iraq is my issue. Peace is my issue. But I was there during a very important time for Korea's labor union movement. On November 22nd, 1980, a man actually immolated himself to get more rights for Korean workers so they could unionize. And that's a very, very important day for the union movements in Korea. And I worked very closely with the Green Party in Korea. I'm sorry, the Democratic Labor Party, who is, you know, just, I think they would be the equivalent of the Green Party here. But people are already starting to ask me, well, you know, what does a free trade agreement, and on November 22nd, it was demonstrating against a free trade agreement between the United States and Korea, South Korea. And people say, well, what does that have to do with, you know, your son dying in Iraq? Well, it has everything to do with my son dying in Iraq. You know, the free trade agreements that want to smash unions, that want to take our jobs out of the country, that want to impoverish people even further, are the very same people that run those, are the very same people that are gobbling up the lands of the villagers in South Korea to expand the military bases. They're the very same people that killed my son. It's the corporations and the military, the militarism of our society that are doing this to people in the world. They're the same thing. And we want the troops to come home from Iraq. And we want the troops to come home from Afghanistan. And it would be nice if we cared about other places in the world like the Sudan.
Yeah, that's right.
But more important, even than these things, is to make sure it never happens again.
Yes.
We have 190 countries in this world. There are 700 military bases in 130 of those countries, U.S. military bases. The people of Daejeon in Pyeongtaek, Korea have farmed their lands for 3 generations. And the military is fencing off their lands so they can't get to them. Because you know why? Camp Humphreys wants a golf course. They're taking these people's farmlands and rice paddies to build a golf course for the soldiers. But this isn't the only place this is happening in the world. And I say, if the people of the country want our military presence there, that's fine. But if they want our military presence out, they need to get out. It's the same thing that's happening in Iraq with this, what they call civil war. And it happened in Korea. Korea, the North against the South. And Koreans, all of them told me that we can't solve our problems and unite our country with the U.S. government in the middle of it. Because the U.S. government and the war machine has everything at stake in demonizing North Korea and making North Korea militant so we can keep our presence in South Korea. So this is what's happening all over the world. They want to create this agitation. They want to create these problems so our military will be welcome there. But you know what? I go all over the world, and our military presence is not welcomed by the people anywhere.
That's right.
They want our military presence gone. And one way of reducing the Pentagon is to bring our troops home. I am not for the strategic redeployment. Bring our troops home to their homes.
That's right.
Bring our troops home to their families. Bring our troops home to our borders. And we need to pare down this, what Dennis was talking about, this preemptive, first strike military, to one to defend. To one to, I'm looking for a time when instead of being the big bully in the United States being the big bully of the world, I want us to be the big sister that everybody looks up to. If we have a problem, we can go to the United States and they'll work out this problem without using violence. And I'm looking forward to that day, and I know that that day is going to happen. When I was in Amman, Jordan, I spoke to many Iraqi parliamentarians because I have this wacky idea here. People always say, Cindy, what should we do about Iraq? I'm like, it doesn't matter what I want to do about Iraq. I don't live there. It's not my country. Why don't we ask the people of Iraq what they want to do about Iraq? And for people to say that we have to stay there to solve their problems is arrogant and racist.
That's right.
You know, many Iraqi people would be very kind the way they are. They're very kind. They're still very hospitable and warm people. They tell me, you know what, we were a civilization while your people were still swinging from trees. You know, we invented writing, math, architecture. We're the cradle of civilization. We can solve our own problems. We don't need your military presence there to solve them. Well, when I was there talking to the Iraqi parliamentarians, I was heading back to the airport, and I was riding in a taxi with Abu Salim. He's a misplaced Palestinian. There's over 1 million Palestinians in Jordan. And like Samir said, millions have fled Iraq to seek asylum, to seek safety. Well, this Abu Salim turned out to be a human rights activist, and he knew who I was, so we were talking. And he said, I don't know what all this killing is about all over the world because we're all brothers and sisters. Our hearts are all connected. And I said, that's right, Abu Salim, I believe that. And I had an epiphany. And I said, you know what, Abu Salim? No matter how disgusting you think this is, our hearts aren't even connected to George Bush's. That's what he said. Except he went, oh, goddamn son of a bitch! My heart's not connected to his heart. No way, he's the devil. No way, no way, no way. And I just want to say, when Hugo Chavez called George Bush the devil, the rest of the world was going, duh. In this country, we really need to wake up and smell the sulfur. But I told Abu Salim, no, you know, if we believe that, you know, a universal creator created us and connected our hearts, that same universal creator created George Bush. And he wouldn't, no matter how much I talked to him, he wouldn't accept that. But one thing that nobody else on this panel, we've spoken about accountability, but one word that has been left off of this conference here is impeachment. Yes. And you know, the potential Speaker of the House, Congresswoman Pelosi, said it's off the table. And I just want to tell her, the days are gone. The days were here, but they're gone forever when we allow you to set the table. Your employers, we put you there, we can take you out of there. We are the ones that want to set the table. And impeachment is not a left-wing, wacky philosophy. It's a constitutional remedy for a government that is out of control. Yes. And I majored in history at UCLA and I got fairly good grades. If there has ever been a government out of control, it's George Bush's regime. And if we can't say that, we can't say that any other president abused his power. If we can't say George Bush is abusing his power, we can't say Richard Nixon abused his power. It loses meaning. It loses meaning. George Bush is going to be the poster child for abuse of power. When we talk in the future about people who abuse their presidential power, George Bush is going to be the litmus test. We'll say, well, he's not as bad as Bush, or he's worse than Bush, God forbid. That's going to be the line that we draw on the sand. Is going to be the Bush line. And we have to do it. We have to do it not only to get justice for my son's murder, not only to get justice for the people of Iraq and the almost 3,000 other soldiers that have died in this mistake, but we have to do it for Abu Salim. We have to do it for the people of Korea. We have to do it for the people of the world who are looking at us and shaking our heads like we're mentally deficient. We have to do it for them. We have to do it to prove that Americans want accountability, that Americans want justice. Wherever I go, people tell me we should be able to vote for your president because your president screws up the world more than anybody else. Yeah. He's not only our president, he thinks he's president of the world. We have to do it for healing. Our nation has to be healed. Our world has to be healed. But the one thing that we important to impeach these people. And after they're impeached, that's not enough. We have to remove them from office.
You're here.
And after, that's not even enough. After they're removed from office, they have to be in prison. Vietnam, on a daily basis, crimes against humanity were committed. The highest person that was ever tried for any of those crimes was a lieutenant. And the ones who should have been, Nixon and Kissinger and McNamara and Johnson and all of them, if they had gone to prison for their crimes against humanity instead of going off to lives of ease, maybe Iraq wouldn't have happened. Maybe my son would still be alive. So they have, the people who get us into these wars, the people who put our children into impossible situations for lies and for greed, they're the ones that have to pay for it. God forbid if George Bush gets to retire and go to Crawford, because that's where I live now. I have a personal stake in making sure that he is in prison and not returning to Crawford. So here I am, like Carly said, talking to a bunch of socialistic, communistic anarchists who probably agree with almost everything I've said. So I get out a lot, and I'm not a preacher like Dennis Kucinich, but I get out and people say, oh, you're always preaching to the choir. Well, I want to tell you people in the choir, you have to start singing. And you have to start singing it. It doesn't matter if you have a crappy voice like me. You have to sing as loud as you can. And you have to bring other people to the choir to sing with us. Because 70% of this country want our troops to come home. I don't see 70% out singing with us. I don't even think I see like 0.07% out singing with us. But we've done our job. We put the war up for election. Even though George Bush wasn't up for re-election, he was, and he lost miserably. And the war lost miserably. We did that. The peace movement did that. We caused this peaceful revolution on November 7th, but now we have to make sure that the people we put into office follow through with what we want on the table. But we Our job isn't over on November 7th. Our job just started. We have to do our responsibility for democracy. And since there are no effective checks and balances, since the media are not checks and balances, since Congress has spent 6 years invalidating themselves by giving George Bush all the power, even if they are Democrat, it's going to take a long time to get that power back, is that we still have to be working out in the vineyard every day. Every day we have to do it for our children now, but we also have to do it for our children of the future, to make sure that they have a future, to make sure that I can sit on my porch in Crawford, Texas without smelling the sulfur from down the road. One of these days, make sure that we can look our grandchildren in the eyes and tell them we did this for you. Thank you.